What's up everybody, Bootsy Greenwood here, and today I want to talk to you about how thoughts and emotions work together. Now before we get into this, I just want to let you guys know that I am diversifying my stocks and bonds, and I have set up a channel over on library.tv. I'll put a link in the description box. And please, when you get a chance, check out my website, bootsygreenwood.com. I've got an email list there that I'm working on right now. Let's get into it. Alright, so last video we talked a little bit about mind control from the perspective of our own minds. So it really is up to us to work on what our thought life is. Otherwise we're just going to be thought. We're going to be going through life and we're never really going to actually have any control or free will over our life. Remember, we have free will in the space between, right? The dream world and the material world, or stimulus and response. We're all out here in the universe together, cohabitating in this reality, and each one of us chooses how we interact with reality. Reality is giving us different things. Each of us have our own layer of reality, and we each decide how we interact with that particular layer. In general speaking, when we find an advantage in a situation, that opens up our minds in a way to other opportunities. Like, it's real simple, really. You know, the reason why people who are positive and optimistic get ahead is because they're seeking opportunities. Meanwhile, people who are very negative, they don't seek opportunity. Opportunity could be waving their hands in front of them and saying, hey, look, here's what you wanted. It's right here. It's right here waiting for you. But alas, no, you're just walking, with your head down, and Eeyoring out. And then you don't have access to those particular opportunities because you're not looking for them. But generally speaking, an optimistic person is going to notice those and thus pick up on them. Then they will take action on them. Now, our thoughts influence our emotions, and our emotions influence our thoughts. This is a feedback loop. And we are always spiraling up or down. Now, that's not bad news, because in truth, we're going to spiral up some, and then we're going to spiral down a little bit, and then we'll spiral up some, and then we'll spiral down a little bit. Sometimes it feels like we're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But if you listen to that, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's 3 steps forward overall. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. And this vibration that we're on, as we dip and come up and dip and come up, we're constantly elevating our personal timelines, like we were talking about before, through this feedback loop. Now, one of the things that I've provided for you today is a vibe check checklist. It's something that a friend of mine says, and I just think it's the cutest thing. Vibe check, and I'll just be like, I don't even know how to respond to it, to be honest. I'll just be like, I'm good, or like, I'm in my head, I'm in the ether right now, or like, what? I don't know, but I love it. It's a really cool way to just like, hey, are you here right now? Are we in this thing? Are we controlling our mind? Like in the last video, I gave some mind control exercises. A lot of people talk about, what do they call them when you say the same thing over and over? Affirmations. I spent a year of my life doing affirmations behind a bar at a job that I hated, just telling myself that I love myself, 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 I love myself. Literally, over and over and over again. And there's a lot of people who have mantras and things like that, and those things can be super helpful. I'm not saying anything negative against those, but let me be real honest with you. Emotions are way more powerful than thoughts. Emotions can lift your thoughts out of a rut and get you thinking all kinds of different things. So in this vibe check checklist, one of the sections, and it's a very basic vibe check checklist, okay? The things that I've included are like morning routine, what you've eaten, what you've exercised, and a way to get out of like a bad vibe, okay? So the way that you can get out of a bad vibe is totally up to you, okay? There's a lot of different ways to do that. For me personally, like I'll just start yelling gibberish, or I'll put on a really good song and just like start dancing to it, right? And if somebody was there watching me dance, they would so make fun of me for it. But I don't care, because I dance like that because no one is watching. If someone was watching, I don't know, I might be a little bit more squeamish. But the emotions themselves can really lift you up out of a rut. So keep that in mind. You know, improvisation, being silly, being goofy, those are the types of things that can really get us out of our head, which is generally speaking what happens whenever we get into like a downward spiral. It's usually based on thought. It's usually bringing us into a place of isolation, of separateness. Whereas emotions and happiness and joy make us feel like we're a part of something, which is true. You know, this is really where infinity is. We are a part of everything, and we cannot really disconnect from it. And we have this ability to think we can with our thoughts, with our brain. But this vibe check checklist, like I said, morning routine. Morning routine is absolutely essential. It's something that I've recently just had a dose of my own medicine, because I'm like, you don't need a routine, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can establish a 2-minute routine or a 5-minute routine. You know, it doesn't have to be long. I have like basically a 2-minute routine where I'm reading Vadim Zeland's 78 Days Practical Transurfing every morning. There's a passage each day. And so that's part of mine. And then, I do some just basic focus on my heart and the people that I am grateful for. So that was the other part of the vibe check checklist that I'm going to be including a link to underneath this video is, what are you grateful for? Jot a few things down. Remember that. Keep that in the front of your mind. Guys, I got to be honest with you and tell you that this shared reality that we're all experiencing together, that we are part co-creators of, is probably going to be a little bit difficult in the months to come, depending especially on how we react to it, as well as some of the things that are coming down the pipe. If there's another lockdown, well, so be it. That's what it's going to say. How are we going to react to that as people? And I think a lot of people suffered a lot from the last one. I personally lost a business on the last one, and so we had to rebound from that and figure out what to do. This may be a little bit different. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it from there, but I do want to say that I'm going to be trying to provide content that can be helpful for people regardless of what the reality presents us. We have to navigate it, try to find the best possible scenario, stay positive and optimistic, not like, toxic positivity, right? Where it's like, well, everything's great, I promise. And then you just shove all that anger and angst, right? You've got to go through those 5 stages of grief, and you've got to come to acceptance about the reality that we're experiencing. But at that point, we can start to seek and find advantage. Even in the worst situation, like I said in one of the other videos, there are still potential advantages. So this feedback loop is always going on. Always, always, always. So it's something that we want to keep our mind occupied with and staying focused and mindful and in the present moment, so that we're not being taken by someone else's thought or vibe, okay? Here's where we're at right now in society. We have these things called energetic information structures. And these things are groups, usually. They're usually groups without principles. Okay? And they are vying for our attention. There are some other ones, maybe over here. And what happens is, these energetic information structures, which are clusters of thoughts and energy, are trying to capture our emotions specifically. They get at us in our subconscious, and then they affect us in our thought life. So if we're not paying attention, we could be swept away in some, some thought, some crazy thought that's going to spiral and then add energy to this particular informational energetic structure. That thing sucks our energy, our emotions out of our body and gives it to that thing, which creates a feedback loop and a relationship between us and whatever that energetic informational structure is. Right now we're in a very weird and critical time where a lot of people in these groups, they are hearing one side of the narrative, and then the people on the other side are hearing another side of the narrative, and there's not really much middle ground, you know? In the past, I remember there used to be middle ground. There would be people who were like, well, that's a little extreme, and then other people were like, that's a little extreme, and then, you know, you would be able to have access to the information in the middle. That's not so much more the case, and I think that intuition now is incredibly important, as well as guarding our thoughts and emotions and making sure that we're holding on to that energy ourselves. Because if we don't control our minds, then our thoughts and our emotions can get out of whack and just absolutely go nuts. You're gonna have a bad day here or there, you're gonna dip, and that's all right. But that's part of why I'm providing the vibe check checklist, so that you can kind of come back to that. It's very simple. It's just a few different categories to check off every single day. What am I eating? What am I doing to exercise? You know, what am I thankful for? Remembering those things, keeping them in the front of our minds, and then having a way to break out just in case you start to have a weird day, you start to get down, and you start to get your energy sucked, you know, maybe by a group without principles. If that starts to happen, well, what can you do? Can you isolate yourself? I like Spotify a lot. I use Spotify, and I'll put on, you know, a jamming tune, and I'll start dancing to it. Or, you know, I'll just, like I said, I'll just speak gibberish or yell and get really silly, you know, or call a friend who I like, as well as just focusing on my heart, which is part of my morning routine. The morning routine thing for me has been absolutely super helpful, because instead of, I used to just get on, I would just get on Twitter or something in the beginning of the day, which is absolutely disastrous for me, because I'd be like, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, look, somebody's getting their arm blown off, you know? And then I'm like, oh, so that's what I'm thinking about for the rest of the day. I don't recommend doing that. Instead, I recommend putting yourself at the cause and creating your own feedback loop. That way, you're in a decent mood no matter what's going on. And that doesn't mean you can't pay attention. That doesn't mean you shouldn't know what's going on. But keep in mind that a lot of these groups and a lot of these places, even social media and YouTube itself, guards you from certain information. The truth in the middle is not necessarily so much as accessible as it once was. So please check me out on the alternative platforms. Start to check out the alternative platforms in general. Library.tv, I'll put a link in the description below. All my videos are going to be syncing over there. Also, the podcast is on the RSS feed, and please check out my website, BootsyGreenwood.com. Not to mention, I also put out every single week on Patreon, patreon.com/BootsyGreenwood. And if you find any of this stuff helpful, I'm giving all this stuff away for free. I'm not asking you to join a club. I'm not asking you to do anything, really. I just honestly would like to see some improvement in people's lives. I hope that we can work together, build networks, and help each other out. That's my vision. I like what I'm doing. I have a lot of fun doing this, and I hope that when I'm touring around and doing comedy, you'll come out and you know, come see me perform. So thank you all so much for watching this video. Thank you for being a subscriber if you are, and I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.